Hi there, I'm your host Macaulay Tucker, and you're listening to The Macaulay Tucker Show, the podcast where I sit down with some of the most accomplished and fascinating individuals in the entertainment and business industry. From celebrities to industry leaders, our guests offer unique perspectives and inspiring stories that will educate and inform you. Join me as I sit down with my next guest to cover their humble beginnings, challenges they faced, as well as their accomplishments in life. You are bound to learn something new, so sit back and enjoy the interview. Today on the show, we had Brent Simons. He is one of the creators and writers of Megamind. And on the show today, we talk about working on Megamind as well as even writing for the movie Penguins of Madagascar. I bet you'll really enjoy this interview. We talk a lot about what it was like working on all these different projects as well as ones that were never really released to the public. So sit back and enjoy this interview. I'm really interested to know, how you began your journey in the industry. It's evident that you've been involved for quite some time. I came across your IMDb page, and one credit that caught my first attention, I think this was your original, the first thing you were in. I'm not sure if this was you or somebody else, but the 2002 Spiderman movie. It must have been a remarkable experience to kickstart your career with something that aligns with your interests. So I'd just love to hear, what got you interested in this?
I've been a lifelong fan of movies, thanks to my parents who just, raised me on a steady diet of movies, including ones they enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm of a generation. I'm one of those kids that, I was 3 years old, but I remember going to see Star Wars, the original Star Wars, when it came out in the theater, and like a lot of people my generation, that changed me. Mm-hmm. And as I grew, there were other films like Raiders of the Lost Ark, a few years later, and that changed me. And as I got older, I saw Aliens, by James Cameron's Aliens, and that changed me a little bit. And I love movies. I was fascinated by the way they were made. And as I got older, I got deeper and deeper into just researching myself, how are these put together? And I think it was Tim Burton's Batman was like the first movie I just from a fan point, followed from the point it was announced to just and I had a group of friends, just any little bit of info we got from it, we collected and exchange between each other. We would tape stuff off TV and things like that, because not having the internet, that was kind of the only way to kind of follow something. But and then when I was in high school, I saw Clint Eastwood's Unforgiven, and which was written by a screenwriter named David Webb Peebles, he's written Blade Runner, he's written 12 Monkeys, and that was the first movie that grabbed me from a screenplay level of just I saw it, I went to go see it expecting one kind of movie, and got another when I sat down in the theater. And I went to go see it the next day and sought out the script, had to order it, and kind of just read it and studied it. And that's kind of when I knew I wanted to, that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to create and write. And that's how I'm here. Now, Spider-Man's a different story. Spider-Man is an interesting tale.
Yeah, so how did that happen? Again, that really stood out to me because I know from what I've seen, you go to a lot of wrestling matches, things like that. And so the fact that you were able to, which I'm not sure if this was something that you were interested in at that time, the fact that it aligned with that was kind of cool. How did that happen? Was that your first? It was not writing, it was actually acting. How did that happen?
Well, acting. I get it was background acting, which is acting. So I'm a huge comic book nerd. If you can't tell, I guess it's blurry, so you can't see my office, but there's comic book stuff all over this room. And me and my friends, we recently had moved to LA, and the announcement came that they were looking for extras for the first Spider-Man movie. And this is one of those movies, like I've been telling you, like my friends and I followed this movie before it was even made. Like at one point, James Cameron was going to make it, and it didn't happen. It kind of went around. It seemed like it was never going to happen. Finally, it was going to happen. They announced that they need extras for, you know, the big wrestling scene with Randy Macho Man Savage, who I grew up watching as a giant wrestling fan. So I went with a group of friends, you know, two of which are involved in the wrestling scene and now, but weren't then. And yeah, we spent an entire day just watching Randy Macho Man Savage body slam Tobey Maguire's stunt double over and over and over again. And we heard him say the line "Bonesaws ready" like 800 times. And it was a very long day, but you know, we had a blast. We just kind of wanted to be part of, like our one of our favorite superheroes, you know, coming to life. I felt like the room was filled with people like that who just wanted to be kind of involved in this moment. And of course, it's gone on to be this big thing.
Yeah. You mentioned a lot of really interesting things there. Going back, you mentioned comics, and I just discovered this before we got on the call that they've produced some comics based upon your creation, Megamind, which it must be even cooler because you're like, wow, I love comics. Now there's a comic out there with something from my creation, which must be such a surreal experience. I kind of explained this beforehand, but I love sitting down and making. I wouldn't say stories. They're not really stories, but just characters with problems. And it's just always fun to sit down and do that. But the fact that you were able to kind of do that and then like seeing the outcome of that is truly, truly wonderful. And it just must be such a great experience to be able to be involved, kind of just going straight into the heart of this conversation, Megamind. I grew up watching that film and I've watched it several times since, and it's such a unique film compared to the other ones out there. It's funny. It's really, really cool. And so I just kind of like, it's an incredible journey. You and your partner, Alan Schoolcraft, you guys played a pivotal role in this creation. It's intriguing to learn that initially you were told, a superhero comedy wouldn't sell. However, 5 years later, you received a call and things changed. And, that's exactly what you guys needed. And this, serves as a powerful testament to, the importance of pursuing, what the movies we believe in and, regardless of others' opinions. So, I've come across, interesting information about this film, suggesting that it was quite a gamble for you. It's been mentioned that you quit your job and your wife was laid off, however, everything kind of worked out. And is it true that this like originally was like planned as a live action comedy with Ben Stiller? That's what I heard. And, and looking back at the original script, which I was reading at, it was like, wow, this is a lot different, but I just love to hear, how did this all happen?
Yeah. It partially true. Like, so when Alan and I first wrote it, it was quite a bit before it was made. I'm trying to remember the year we wrote it. It might have been 2003. We wrote it. I might be wrong. And we it was one of those things that it was just an idea. We had, what if Lex Luthor killed Superman in the opening scene? What would the rest of the movie be? And we both kind of laughed about it, but we just kept going back to this idea. And then we started figuring out the beats of the story, and we realized we had an entire movie, and we were really excited. And but a lot of people were telling us, superhero comedies don't do well. One had come out and had not done well. So we were kind of being discouraged, but our manager encouraged us to keep, plugging away at it. And yeah, we kind of, we wrote it, and Old School, I think, with Will Ferrell came out. It was like that weekend we either started or finished, and we both went, wouldn't that be cool if Will Ferrell was Mastermind, who that was his name at that point. And then I think Shrek came out around that time. We're like, hey, you know what, this could be, and Shrek was kind of one of the first animated movies to be really subversive and be aware of itself. And we're like, what if this was animated? And so, but no, we hadn't had no idea what was going to eventually happen. We figured it would be live action. There was at one point it was being batted around as being kind of a live action broad comedy with someone else, and so we did a draft for that director, and that's the draft that's online.
Yes.
I still haven't seen the original draft online, but yeah, that was specifically written for to be kind of like almost like an R-rated comedy, actually.
Yeah, I was reading that. I think I found it. I'm like, I don't want to like quote this material if this is like one of the original ones, but yeah, there's like a bunch of people commenting saying, "Oh, it's supposed to be this," and someone's like, "This is not Megamind. This is totally off." Like they're all like going crazy about it, and I was just, it's just cool, you know. And
no, you know, it's amazing. Like, and look, at the time we were struggling. We would have been thrilled if that version happened, you know, and but we're really happy with the final product. It wasn't easy, you know. It was actually kind of several years later we got a call that, you know, DreamWorks is going to do it with Ben Stiller's company, and it was going to be animated, but yeah, no, and even then it went through many versions. You know, the film changed many times, and that's the development process. As like a director comes on with a vision, as other people come on with a vision, and it was the movie went through several directors. It wasn't until the final one came on, Tom McGrath, and he went back to our original draft. And not only that, but he had ideas to make that draft even stronger, and he had a real vision for it. And so kind of the movie that's made is really kind of a culmination of you know, our story, and, you know, having this awesome director's vision and his own ideas. And so it was it went from being kind of, you know, it went from being honestly like a really kind of like rough experience to being, you know, just a great creative experience.
Absolutely. And it's amazing to work with so many cool people. I mentioned this earlier. I spoke with Steve Hickner. He worked on the B movie and directed the B movie and I think the Prince of Egypt. And he just talked about, you know, it's a we, our, us environment, just working with people. It's such a beautiful experience. And so it must have been really awesome with this film. Kind of, I mean, this wasn't on my list, but kind of like niche questions involving the film. Were you able to, because I know a lot of the time I talked with Steve and he said that he did voice like I guess some mosquitoes, but he hated it and they never put it in. Were you able to lend your voice at all, like in throughout the film, or even throw in some of your own jokes?
Oh yeah. So I mean, the whole movie is Alan, you know, it was Alan and I, you know, it's we were blessed to kind of stay on it the whole time. And so yeah, that's kind of us. But yeah, no, we, you know, there's early points in animation as they're putting everything together where you know, you do scratch, you do temporary voice, and so that was a lot of fun to do. And so Alan and I would do it for the various characters if they needed us to. We did it for a couple of characters who were ultimately cut out of the movie. At one point, you know, I did Megamind at one point. You know, and it's just to help the animators as they're kind of boarding and putting everything together. But, yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. But actually, we're working on the Megamind TV show now, and Alan and I were able to kind of voice some characters very briefly, and so that was like and that's staying in. So that was like a big dream come true for us to finally to land some roles.
That's awesome. And it's super cool. I've spoken to a few that like exactly what you said, you know, the scratch voices. I know one, he was a storyboard artist and Disney loved it so much. Like you are now the voice of Rhino the hamster in Bolt. And he was just a storyboard artist. It's crazy. It can happen.
No, it happens. Yeah. I think it happened with one of the Shreks. You know, the villain of the movie ultimately is one of the storyboard artists. I think it's the fourth Shrek movie. And yeah, no, it's amazing, but there's a lot of talent, you know, like there's a lot of, that's the amazing kind of thing Alan and I found, you know, with Megamind and how it ended up happening, you know, like that early version you talked about, the live action version, that would have been, you know, like most likely that would have been something that would have been kind of taken away from us and off and made. maybe we would go to the premiere and stuff like that. But I mean, kind of the blessing with it being made the way it was we were heavily involved, and we got to experience the just amazing collaboration that is animation. And it's, you know, being surrounded by these awesome artists, and, you know, getting inspired by each other. Like there would be a board artist who, you know, we'd write something and a board artist would interpret it, but then they add like some you know, some stuff to it, and we'd be like, oh, that's hilarious, and then we'd go back and write, and it's this awesome sort of like back and forth, where you're kind of inspiring each other, you know, when it's done right. And Tom McGrath, just, you know, he as the project's leader, really kind of, you know, had this mentality that, you know, a good idea can come from anywhere, you know, and but at the same time, he just had such a clear vision. But he did encourage everyone to just kind of, you know, add their stamp, you know, and that was great.
That's very beautiful. And it sounds like it was, you know, very awesome, very memorable, lots of memories made from that. You know, Megamind has captured the hearts of, you know, of many fans. Like I know you've probably seen it, but there's lots of memes now. There's tons of stuff. I of course, you know, do a lot of social media, so I follow a lot of meme pages. So you've got people, you know, using Megamind as memes and stuff. So it must be really, I even was showing, again, going back, the B movie director showing him the stuff. He's like, this is so weird. He hadn't seen any of them before, so he was so thrown off guard by that. But, you know, it's so crazy. You know, there's so much, you know. And here's kind of an interesting question, you know, amidst, you know, the saturation of superhero movies now, what do you believe sets Megamind apart from the animated film? And additionally, with that question, you know, looking back at this final product, because this is kind of not really, it's a very different question than that one, but like looking back at the Megamind product, like the final product, is there anything that, you know, looking back, you're like, you know, I wish it kind of looked like this? Because I know, you know, we kind of have that where you look at things, you know, I could have done this differently, but, you know, it is what it is. So that's kind of a two question type thing.
Okay. So yeah, like, no, it's interesting you brought up superhero saturation, and when that movie was being made, there really wasn't that many superhero movies. You know, there was the original Spider-Man, and there was the original X-Men, and those had come out, but people didn't have the vocabulary that they do now. And so, like, being a big comic book nerd, you know, I was kind of the one to explain things a lot of the time, of being like, you know, I remember at one point they couldn't get the name. Our original name of the movie was Mastermind, and that legally they couldn't call the movie that. And so, you know, we were going by all these different names. At one point, said, "What about the name Brainiac?" That's perfect. Let's name him Brainiac. And I just being a nerd, raised my hand. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of like a big Superman villain. Like, I don't think you can name the movie that, you know? But what's amazing is, like, I think, you know, as we were making it, like the first Iron Man came out, you know, and things like that. And so now like my mom knows who Rocket Raccoon is, and Groot, you know, and as a comic book nerd, that's a very awesome thing to see these little niche characters become really big and bigger than they ever were. And so that's really cool to see. And I think, kind of, as for what sets Megamind apart, I think Alan and I have always been drawn to, like, you know, redemption stories. And we kind of we both, you know, were, you know, grew up, I think one of our favorite stories growing up was The Grinch. And so kind of we saw Megamind an opportunity to do a story like that, and do this kind of, you know, blend of two worlds. Because, you know, it's like Alan had a great way of putting it. It's like, you know, DC characters are who we aspire to be, and Marvel characters are who we really are. And so we kind of saw Megamind being in between those two worlds, and kind of being a hero for just kind of anyone who, you know, doesn't think they're good enough. And so that's kind of what, you know, I think that's kind of what sets him apart. You know, it's like, I think everyone can kind of identify with an underdog, you know, and what's more underdog than a villain, you know?
Absolutely. And it's
Yeah.
again going back such a beautiful film, and it's so unique, and it sparks so many things like video games and comics, and again it stays there, and it will always be remembered, and that just must be an amazing feeling. This is a deep question. Throughout the movie it's kind of like a journey, intertwined with the themes of purpose and identity, which contribute to kind of like the film. I'd love to hear your perspective on this. Have you ever encountered a similar crisis or thing like that in your life? If so, what advice or recommendations do you have for individuals who may find themselves in a similar situation like
Oh
that?
yeah, no, absolutely. Like I've growing up, I had friends, and stuff like that, but I always felt like I struggled with dyslexia growing up,
Mm-hmm.
and so I always kind of felt like, even though I had like friends, like I'd go to school and I'd just kind of feel like kind of an outsider, you know? And so like I I knew I was good at writing at an early age because I wasn't really good at any of the other subjects. And so I think that's why I gravitated towards that too. But I think I over time kind of, and it took a long time and
Mm-hmm.
to realize, that kind of weakness pointed me to my strengths. And
Yes.
it's like I kind of now look back going like, well, that I'm very lucky, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And like I saw it as such a bad thing growing up and would often hide it. But I think kind of over time I realized that it kind of pointed me in the direction I needed to go.
Yes.
And so yeah, I think in that way I felt a little like Megamind, of just being an outsider and kind of trying to find my place, trying to find the thing I'm good at and
Mm-hmm.
what I'm meant to do.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that's your choice.
Yeah.
It's are you going to let some, and look, I would get angry, I would get
Mm-hmm.
frustrated, but at a certain point, and I, as an adult, I sometimes still do, but ultimately, you have a decision, what kind of person you're going to be,
Yeah.
and how are you going to deal with the challenges that come your way. And so I guess in that way I feel like Megamind.
I mean, but like that's really, that's valuable. And again, you learn from these challenges, you learn from these things, and you grow as a person. I feel like that'll definitely, impact I guess the young people listening. I just wanted to ask that. I thought that'd be an interesting question. But again, Megamind, there's a TV show coming. I know because I've spoken with so many people. There's a lot of hush hush things like that. But it must be so crazy that we're finally getting this back. And I know you've talked about it. People have like talked about let's make Megamind too. Things like that. So just wondering. I'm curious to know your thoughts. What's coming up? What's coming up? What can you talk about and reveal about this new show on the program?
Yeah, I can't,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I can't say a thing.
Okay.
Only that, we're really excited. Um, it's again a wonderful collaboration with
Yes.
some very, very talented people. And I think, uh, we've had fans, both Ellen and I have had fans reach out, asking for more Megamind, and we've always really appreciated it, and yeah, it's coming. It's
It's
coming.
coming.
Yeah, I got to be so careful. I
I
brought this
know. Oh,
far.
absolutely. I think I
Yeah.
had Tony Stark's daughter on my show and from Endgame. We were talking about I think Spider-Man No Way Home or whatever, one of those ones. And she was like, she had to cover because she was about to say something that shouldn't have been leaked, and it was kind of
Oh
funny.
wow.
Yeah, I think it was about. I think she originally was supposed to appear in the movie, and I was just talking about that. Are you going to be in it? And she's like, "Oh, can't cover that." But I totally understand. But yeah, no, kind of moving on. This is an interesting one. Penguins of Madagascar. I,
Yeah.
funny enough, had no idea that you were with that project. And looking back, I'm not sure. It kind of makes sense. It's really good. I don't know why. I love the movie. It's as good as I would say Megamind. It's so funny and it makes sense and it's really good. But I wanted to kind of hear the difference between your involvement in Megamind and your involvement in Penguins of Madagascar. It looks like you were a writer with Alan on that. It looks like it
Yeah.
was.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was a completely different experience. Megamind was like our creation. But with Penguin and Madagascar, you know, it was something we were asked to write, and that's kind of the other side of screenwriting, our writing assignments and things like that. But we were very flattered, you know, having worked with Tom McGrath. You know, some people might not know this, but Tom McGrath directed the Madagascar movies. Ooh. He's the voice of Skipper. He's the father of the penguins, you know. And so we were really flattered to be asked, and we you know, we wrote the initial draft. Some other talented writers wrote on it as well, and but we had a blast writing it. You know, like we still talk about, like, we had to write it really quickly, and Alan and I had to kind of lock ourselves away for 2 weeks. And we had a blast. It's still one of the just funnest times we've had writing a script, and it's fun to find the voice of a character you haven't written, and it's we have a lot of fun writing two voices as well. So yeah, no, we had a blast.
Yeah, the jokes and everything was hilarious. I've watched it several times, and it's such a great film. And I want to see Madagascar return. And who knows, maybe it's somewhere some group of people are working on Madagascar. But it's such a great film. Now, this is the part that I was really excited to do. You know, during my extensive research, I've stumbled upon a couple really cool projects that have not been talked about since I guess I found them. There was a bunch of them, but two specific really stood out to me: Dog Show and Super Daycare. And you might know this. So, well, the details were very scarce on specifically Dog Show. It was rumored to revolve around a misadventure of a stray dog and her unlikely companions who disrupt this, like, you know, Westminster world of like style dog show. And then Super Daycare was a world with superheroes, but there was, you know, a single daycare. Whatever happened to these ones? What, if you can share?
Oh yeah, you know, again, I have to be careful with those things, but yeah, no, I can. So a big part of being a screenwriter is, you know, the truth is most of the stuff you write won't get made, you know. And I heard somebody say something like, you know, a working screenwriter, it's like maybe 1 out of 7 scripts that you made, and that seems pretty accurate to me, actually. And so we've actually written a lot of movies that haven't been made. You know, so we've written some that have come really close. We've written TV shows that have come close, and it can be frustrating, and you know, and they happen and don't happen for all sorts of reasons. You know, like Megamind almost happened so many times that when it finally sold, our agents didn't tell us because they just want. So like, we got a call from somebody and said, congratulations. It was somebody at DreamWorks we knew about selling Megamind. And we thought it was a prank because no one had told us anything. And we were like, well, that's kind of mean of this guy to do that. And, but we later found out our agents, like, there had literally been like 5 or 6 almost with Megamind, and they just didn't want us to see us get our hearts broken again if this deal didn't go through. And so, and that's kind of what screenwriting's like sometimes. You know, you have to you can't let that get you down. You have to I've learned over time, like, you have to enjoy the process, and it's kind of like, a screenwriter named John August put it best, I think, where he said, screenwriting is the research and development of the film industry. You know, you're given, you know, most often you're given writing assignments and things, or books or other movies that are, you know, or original ideas that they think might be a good movie. And so your job as a screenwriter is to kind of make the best blueprint for a movie you can. And they either build the building or they don't. You know?
Yeah. I get that. I think one of the projects, I didn't mention it yet, but one of the projects that I really wish saw the light of day was one that I discovered a few days ago. I think from like 2011, it was a mockumentary style TV show called The Yard, I believe. It was around like, it was an elementary school with, I think, teachers and students. And I'm like, that just sounds so like, it's kind of like The Office, but like a whole different spin. And that was one of the things I'm like, you know what? I really wish that would have seen or maybe would sometimes see the light of day? Because that just sounds so unique.
Yeah, that was one that came really close, and it was frustrating at the time. It was like really close. A lot of people were telling us this is going to happen, and so that was a hard one. But like it also kind of like taught me, that it's not it's not that it's not okay to be upset, but it's like, enjoy the process, and as much as you can, and kind of heal and move on,
Yeah. And just kind of take that as learning experience. Sometimes things won't work out. Like, again, I mentioned I have all these like so many crazy ideas, but like I highly doubt that they will somehow see the light of day sometime unless somebody sees them and is like, oh, that's actually really cool, Macaulay. But you just kind of like,
at the same time, they won't happen unless you kind of like what you're doing now. You're doing something, and you're putting it out there. You're not like, well, maybe somebody will see me like interview people. Like you're making a product right now. So you are taking the step many people don't, and so it's nothing gets done if you don't like sit down and dare to fail,
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of what I've been considering doing. Like, I'm like, maybe I should like sit down and write like not a screenplay, but kind of like write an explanation. Before I ask my final question, I know you're working on this new Megamind show, but besides that, any new things that we would expect to see from you in the future that you can share about?
Unfortunately, I have to be careful with some stuff. We're actually we're adapting a book for an animated feature right now. And so that's looking good. Hopefully I'll be able to say something about it fairly soon. But there's not too much I can really say.
Yeah,
but
all good.
Just plugging away on Megamind, and grateful to all the fans who've written DreamWorks over the years, and us, and who kind of made this happen. So just very grateful.
Very bright future ahead. It definitely sounds like a very, very packed future. And I always ask my guests, to conclude the conversation, what's one piece of advice that you can give to any number of listeners listening right now, whether they want to be a writer, an actor, anything, a pharmacist, a dentist, anything like that?
The kind of best advice I was ever given was actually, from my dad, who said, it's like, and this goes back to what I was saying, it's kind of really uncertain, like I knew I loved movies, but I knew as a young person that's a rough road to take, and I saw my dad was like an electrical engineer, and he saw like, and I knew he loved his job, but it was not something I can't even balance my checkbook. I can't be an electrical engineer, right? So he kind of said, he's like, Brent, I enjoy what I do, but sometimes, it's really tough. And the things that get me through those tough days is the fact I love what I do, and so really, if you love something, and maybe you can't make it your job, but do it. Like that's kind of like a part of yourself. It's a muscle you need to exercise, and maybe it will lead to something, and maybe that will be a job, maybe it'll be a way to make money, or maybe it's just an outlet, and it's just a way to make you happy. But if you love something, and it's writing stories, sculpting, singing, it's work that muscle. It's like exercise or anything else. Find a way to work that muscle, and things will happen. I truly believe.